December 9, 1945, Mannheim, Germany, 11:45 a.m. The war is over. Adolf Hitler is dead. The Third Reich lies in ruins. The Great Crusade that liberated Europe has ended, and the most feared American commander of the Second World War prepares for a Sunday morning hunting trip. General George Smith Patton Jr. climbs into the backseat of his 1938 Cadillac Model 75 staff car. He wears civilian clothes, a rare sight for a man who believed uniforms were sacred vestments of war. Beside him sits Major General Hobart Gay, his chief of staff and closest confidant. In the driver's seat, Private First Class Horace Woodring adjusts his rearview mirror and pulls away from the headquarters building. The roads are quiet. Reconstruction crews work along the bombed-out highways. The landscape carries the scars of total war, collapsed buildings, burned-out vehicles, craters filled with rainwater reflecting the gray December sky. Patton stares out the window. He has been stripped of his beloved Third Army, reassigned to a paper command, the 15th Army, tasked only with writing after-action reports, a desk job. For a warrior who led the most aggressive armored campaign in American military history, it is a living death. "This is a hell of a way to die," Patton mutters. Gay looks at him. "Sir." "Nothing," Patton says, "just thinking." The Cadillac moves through the outskirts of Mannheim at approximately 30 miles per hour. The road ahead is clear, nothing unusual, nothing threatening. Then at 11:45 a.m., an olive-drab army truck lurches into the intersection. Private Woodring slams the brakes. The Cadillac skids. Metal meets metal in a grinding collision. Not violent, not catastrophic, barely more than a fender bender at low speed. Gay and Woodring walk away without a scratch. But George S. Patton does not walk away. The general slumps in the back seat. Blood streams from a gash on his forehead. His neck hangs at an unnatural angle. He cannot move his legs. He cannot feel his arms. He gasps for breath and manages only a whisper. "I'm paralyzed. I think this is the end." 20 miles per hour, maybe 30, a minor traffic accident, and the most dangerous man in Europe will never walk again. This is the official story. But nothing about it makes sense. The following hours unfold in chaos and confusion. Military police arrive within minutes. Medical personnel transport Patton to the 130th Station Hospital in Heidelberg. Doctors discover that the general has suffered a cervical vertebral fracture. His third and fourth vertebrae are crushed. His spinal cord severely damaged. Paralysis is complete from the neck down. At Third Army headquarters, officers receive the news with disbelief. The man who survived dozens of combat operations, who stood upright under artillery bombardment, who led from the front through North Africa, Sicily, France, Belgium, and Germany. This man has been felled by a traffic accident on a quiet Sunday morning. Colonel Charles Groover, Patton's former intelligence officer, later recalls the atmosphere. "It was like someone had pulled the plug. Everything just stopped. We couldn't believe it. Not Patton, not like this." The military launches an investigation. Military police interview Private First Class Robert L. Thompson, the driver of the Army truck. Thompson claims he was turning left into a quartermaster depot when the Cadillac struck his vehicle. He was sober. He was licensed. He was following procedure. Within 24 hours, Thompson vanishes from the record. No court-martial, no disciplinary action, no further testimony. The driver who caused the collision that killed America's most celebrated combat general simply disappears into the bureaucratic machinery of post-war demobilization. His service file becomes incomplete. His whereabouts become unknown. He is never publicly interviewed about the accident. Decades later, investigators will search for Robert L. Thompson. They will find a name, a service number, and nothing else. Rewind, step back from the accident. Examine the months before December 9, 1945. George S. Patton has become a problem. Not to the Germans are defeated. Not to the Japanese have surrendered. Patton has become a problem to his own government, to his own allies, to the emerging post-war order that requires silence, obedience, and diplomatic restraint. Patton possesses none of these qualities. In the spring of 1945, as Allied forces push into the heart of Germany, Patton argues relentlessly for a different strategy. He wants to push east, not to the Elbe River where American and Soviet forces are scheduled to link up, further, to Berlin, to Prague, to Warsaw. He wants to beat the Soviets to every major European capital. "We're going to have to fight them eventually," Patton tells his staff. "We might as well do it now while the army is intact and we can kick the hell out of them." General Dwight D. Eisenhower, Supreme Allied Commander, rejects the idea. Berlin has been promised to the Soviets at the Yalta Conference. The alliance must be preserved. Patton is ordered to halt. He obeys, barely, and he never forgives. In the weeks after VE Day, Patton grows more vocal. He attacks the denazification program, arguing that former Nazi Party members should be retained in administrative positions because, as he puts it, the Nazi thing is just like a Democratic and Republican election fight. The statement ignites a firestorm. Newspapers across America demand his removal. Jewish organizations condemn him. Eisenhower summons him to headquarters. George Eisenhower says, "You've got to stop talking to the press." "I'm not going to lie, Ike," Patton replies. "I'm not built that way." "Then you're going to lose your command." On October 2, 1945, Patton is stripped of the Third Army. He is reassigned to the 15th Army, a phantom unit with no combat role, staffed by clerks and historians. It is, in military terms, a death sentence for his career. But Patton does not stop talking. In the final weeks of his life, George Patton speaks openly about the Soviet Union. He speaks with the fury of a prophet ignored. He speaks as if he knows time is running out. "The Russians are the enemy," he tells anyone who will listen. "They're godless communists. They're going to try to conquer the world, and we're giving them everything they need to do it." He writes letters to family members expressing deep pessimism about the future. He tells his wife, Beatrice, that he doubts he will survive to return home. He confides to friends that he believes he is being watched, that they want him eliminated. They is never defined, but Patton's list of enemies is long. The Soviets hate him. His aggressive stance toward Moscow threatens the fragile post-war alliance. His public statements undermine American diplomatic efforts. His very existence represents a counterargument to the policy of cooperation with Stalin. But the Soviets are not his only enemies. Within the American establishment, powerful figures want Patton silenced. His criticism of the occupation policy embarrasses the Truman administration. His attacks on denazification undermine the political narrative of a just peace. His proposed memoir, which he is writing at the time of the accident, threatens to expose disagreements and decisions that influential men want forgotten. On November 20, 1945, less than 3 weeks before the accident, Patton dines with Major General John P. Lucas, a former commander of the VI Corps. According to Lucas's diary, Patton is despondent but determined. "He said he was in danger," Lucas writes. "He said that they were going to try to kill him. I asked who they were. He just looked at me and said, 'I think I'll be seeing you soon, John, one way or another.'" 19 days later, an army truck lurches into an intersection in Mannheim. The hospital room at Heidelberg becomes the final battlefield. Patton lies on his back, completely paralyzed, breathing with the assistance of mechanical equipment. He cannot move, he cannot fight, he cannot escape, but his mind remains sharp and he speaks with those who visit him. To his wife, who arrives from America on December 11, he whispers, "It's too damn bad. I'm going to die. It's all very simple, too damn simple." To his doctors, he says, "I don't want to live like this. If I can't fight, I'd rather be dead." His condition stabilizes briefly. By mid-December, medical staff report that the general is responding to treatment. There is talk of transferring him to the United States. There is cautious optimism that he might survive, paralyzed, yes, but alive. Then on December 21, 1945, George S. Patton stops breathing. The official cause of death is pulmonary edema and congestive heart failure, complications from his spinal injury. He dies at 5:50 p.m., 12 days after the accident. No autopsy is performed. His body is not returned to the United States. Instead, Patton is buried in the American cemetery at Hamm, Luxembourg, among the Third Army soldiers who fell during the Battle of the Bulge. It is what he would have wanted, his family says, to rest with his men. But the burial overseas ensures that American pathologists will never examine the body. Whatever secrets lie within will remain buried in European soil. The conspiracy theories begin almost immediately. In 1979, military historian Ladislas Farrago publishes a biography suggesting that Patton may have been assassinated. He points to the suspicious circumstances, the minor nature of the accident, the severity of Patton's injuries, the disappearance of key witnesses, the absence of an autopsy, the convenient timing of the general's death. Other researchers follow. They interview surviving witnesses. They examine declassified documents. They uncover fragments of a disturbing picture. Douglas Bazata, a former OSS operative and Jedburgh commando, makes a startling claim in 1979. At a meeting of the OSS Veterans Association, Bazata announces that he was ordered to kill Patton by Office of Strategic Services Director William Donovan. "We were told to get rid of him," Bazata says. "The orders came from the top. I wasn't the shooter, but I know what happened." Bazata's claims are never independently verified. He offers no documentary proof. Many historians dismiss him as a fantasist or a provocateur seeking attention, but his statement places a name, a specific American intelligence operative, at the center of the conspiracy. Soviet involvement is also alleged. In 2008, military investigator Tim Wilcox examines declassified NKVD files and concludes that the Soviets had motive, means, and opportunity to eliminate Patton. The general was the most vocal anti-Soviet voice in the American military. His removal would benefit Moscow enormously. Wilcox interviews a former Soviet agent who claims that Patton was targeted for assassination, though the agent provides no details of the method used. The theories multiply. Some suggest that Patton was struck by a specially designed non-lethal weapon, possibly a rubber bullet or compressed air projectile, fired into the Cadillac at the moment of impact, causing his neck injury while leaving no visible evidence. Others propose that the truck collision was staged as cover for a professional hit team. Still others claim that Patton was poisoned in the hospital, deliberately killed after surviving the initial accident. None of these theories have been conclusively proven, but none have been conclusively disproven either. Consider the evidence. Consider the anomalies that the official investigation never adequately explained. First, the disproportionality of the injuries. A low-speed collision, 20 to 30 miles per hour, produces 2 passengers without a scratch and 1 passenger with a fatal spinal fracture. Private Woodring, the driver, recalls no violent impact. General Gay, sitting beside Patton, experiences no injury whatsoever. Only Patton is hurt, and his injury is catastrophic, precise, fatal. How does a minor fender bender selectively kill one man while leaving the others unharmed? Second, the disappearing witness. Private Robert L. Thompson, the truck driver, is interviewed briefly and then vanishes. He faces no disciplinary action despite causing an accident that killed a 4-star general. His service record becomes incomplete. His subsequent life becomes untraceable. Why was he not held accountable? Why was he allowed to disappear? Third, the absence of an autopsy. When a 4-star general dies under unusual circumstances, standard military procedure demands a thorough forensic examination. No such examination was conducted. Patton's body was embalmed and buried within days. The evidence was placed beyond reach. Why? Fourth, the timing. Patton dies just as his condition appears to be stabilizing. For 12 days, he fights for his life. Then suddenly he succumbs to cardiac failure, a complication doctors say, but a convenient one. If Patton had survived paralyzed, he still could have spoken. He still could have written. He still could have testified about what he knew, what he believed, what he suspected. Dead men do not testify. Step into the mindset of those who might have wanted Patton eliminated. Consider their perspective, their calculation, their fear. For the Soviets, Patton represented an existential threat to their post-war ambitions. His aggressive advocacy for confronting the USSR contradicted American policy, but his reputation and popularity gave his arguments weight. If Patton returned to the United States, he might enter politics. He might become a senator, a cabinet secretary, even a presidential candidate. His voice could shape American policy for decades. The Kremlin could not allow that. For the American establishment, Patton represented a different kind of danger, a loose cannon who could not be controlled. His memoir threatened to expose the compromises and miscalculations of the war. His public statements humiliated the Truman administration. His very existence reminded the public that alternatives had existed, that different choices might have produced different outcomes. The establishment prefers amnesia. Patton had too good a memory. And so the question emerges, was the accident really an accident, or was it something else, something darker, something carefully planned, something that would remove the most dangerous man in Europe without creating a martyr? A traffic accident provides perfect cover. It is mundane, it is believable, it is anticlimactic. No one suspects murder when a car hits a truck. No one investigates too closely. The file is closed. The body is buried. The inconvenient general is gone. The final days unfold in a hospital room where a paralyzed warrior confronts mortality. Patton knows he has known for months. In letters and conversations, he has expressed the certainty that he will not survive. "I'm going to be killed," he tells friends. "It's all planned out." Some dismiss these statements as paranoid fantasy, the ravings of a man embittered by career disappointment and political defeat. But Patton is not a paranoid man. He is a combat general with decades of experience reading threats. He has survived assassination attempts before. He recognizes danger. In the hospital, he tells his wife, "This is a hell of a way to die." The same words he muttered in the Cadillac before the accident, the same resignation, the same recognition of an ending that feels orchestrated rather than random. On December 21, 1945, George S. Patton draws his final breath. The nurses note the time. The doctors sign the certificate. The telegram goes out to Washington. The headlines go to press. Patton dies of injuries from auto accident. The story is complete. The file is closed. The most dangerous man in Europe has been neutralized. The historical verdict remains disputed 7 decades later. Mainstream historians generally accept the official account. They point to the absence of conclusive evidence for conspiracy. They note that Patton's injuries, while severe, were consistent with the physics of the collision. They observe that conspiracy theories are easier to propose than to prove. There's no smoking gun, says historian Carlo D'Este, author of a definitive Patton biography. We have suspicions, we have anomalies, but we don't have proof. And without proof, we have to accept the official record, even if it feels incomplete. But other analysts remain skeptical. Robert Wilcox, author of a detailed investigation into Patton's death, argues that the circumstantial evidence is overwhelming. Look at who wanted him dead, Wilcox says. Look at the timing. Look at the way witnesses disappeared. Look at the absence of an autopsy. This wasn't a traffic accident. This was an operation, and it succeeded. Major General Hobart Gay, who survived the accident and lived until 1983, refused to discuss December 9, 1945 in detail. When pressed by journalists, he would say only, "I don't know what happened that day. I've asked myself for 40 years and I still don't know." That uncertainty, that persistent, nagging doubt, may be the most damning verdict of all. Return to the Cadillac, return to that gray December morning, return to a general who sensed his death approaching and whispered, "This is a hell of a way to die." Perhaps he meant the irony, a warrior felled by a traffic accident. Perhaps he meant the indignity, a conqueror of armies killed by a truck. Perhaps he meant the waste, a brilliant military mind silenced before he could share what he knew. Or perhaps he meant something else entirely. Perhaps George S. Patton understood exactly what was happening. Perhaps he recognized, in that fraction of a second before impact, that this was no accident, that the enemies he had warned about, Soviet, American, or both, had finally caught up with him, that the collision was not random but designed, that the truck was not a truck but an instrument. Perhaps his final words were not a complaint, but a confession of understanding. This is a hell of a way to die. Not in battle, not facing the enemy, but ambushed on a quiet road by forces he could neither see nor fight. The truth lies buried in Luxembourg, beneath a simple white cross in a cemetery of heroes. George S. Patton rests among his soldiers as he wished, but the questions remain above ground, unanswered, haunting. Was it an accident, or was it murder? 79 years later, we still do not know. And perhaps that uncertainty, that permanent shadow of doubt, is the final victory of those who wanted him silenced. The most dangerous man in Europe died on December 21, 1945. The mystery of how he died has never been laid to rest.